Welcome back. The Department of Government Efficiency says the government buys thousands more software licenses at some agencies than there are employees to use them. Congress took aim at the software problem last year when the House passed the Strengthening Agency Management and Oversight of Software Assets Act. Joe Jordan is CEO of Acta and former administrator of federal procurement policy at the Office of Management and Budget. Joe, welcome. Thanks for joining me. As somebody who's been paying attention to this for a long time, why has it been so hard to get agencies on board with the idea of buying as an enterprise?
Yeah, you know, Francis, and thanks for having me. There are a few reasons. One, agencies will argue they need slightly different configurations and, you know, maybe their agency pluses up or subtracts seasonal employees or things like that. Of course, the real reason is the kind of human behavior in DC where if you give up any of your budget, you never get it back. So they will justify it by saying, yes, but there's a small price to pay to turn it back on and go through another contracting process. But those aren't good reasons. Those aren't good excuses. You know, as you noted, we addressed some of this when I was at OMB through the Federal Strategic Sourcing Initiative. My friend Ann Rung and, of course, Leslie Field through all this, and Matthew Blum helped lead category management. That was kind of an improvement on that going forward. And I think this is a great bipartisan area to try to capture some federal efficiencies.
What are the key steps to take that maybe are not happening now in order to be able to get somebody's arms around this issue? Well,
I think one, an enterprise-wide, and meaning government-wide. You had several guests on recently, Maria Rote and Dave Powner, who talked about this enterprise-wide approach for the whole government on categories like this in information technology. I think that's really smart, and hopefully the team at DOGE that's collecting all this data can do that. Then you need kind of a really senior authority to care. So in my case, my boss, Jeff Zients, and Sylvia Burwell at OMB cared, and they control, to some extent, the purse strings. And so that made agencies care. But now the president and Mr. Musk seem to care quite a bit about efficiencies. And so this is, you know, that will lend that power and impact and importance to the effort. And then third, and this is the part where both sides we fall apart sometimes, is you need to show agencies when you need more of these licenses than expected, we will allow you to go get those. Not just right now you don't and we're taking them away, never to be returned again. And so really it's that smart approach to things like enterprise software that could have a big impact.
One of the conversations that's going on around town, Bloomberg reported this week that the Trump administration may start driving all purchasing for the government through the General Services Administration. Is that a potential stick to the carrot that agencies have had in the past to do things in a different way?
It sure is, and especially if it's done in a believable way where they're not simultaneously announcing a 50% reduction to the Federal Acquisition Service workforce who would carry out that purchasing. But absolutely, that can be a way to do it, because without a shared understanding of the requirements and then the importance of coming together in a unified solution, it's not going to happen. And that could be a way to, you know, add some stick to the equation.
You talked about some of the reasons why agencies shouldn't go out on their own and do individual things. What are some of the arguments that you've seen that are convincing about why agencies should go it alone on a particular type of procurement?
Sure. So let me break kind of these software procurements into almost three buckets. One, the shared services, payroll, financial management systems that are very similar across the entire government, where I really like the outsourced shared services model to a centralized purchaser of the software that would run that. Then you've got things that are, you know, commodity type software that every agency's buying, your Microsoft licenses, etc., which in many cases can be negotiated government-wide, but man, that's hard. Neither side loves giving up that control. And then third are things that are more mission-specific. So agencies may have similar but not perfectly overlapping missions, and that's where it gets a little murky. Like acquisition systems, contract writing systems. Hey, can't more agencies use the same one? I would argue yes. But they have credibly argued back at times, no, here's why our needs are different, and getting one system that can meet all of our needs will actually be more expensive. So again, all discussions that could be better informed by data.
One issue that GSA has struggled with is that data over time, to be able to assemble it and make it available to people at other agencies to know, Agency X paid $5 for this, agency Y paid $6 for this, and we want to understand what the differences are and why that happens. What would you like to see happen in order for that visibility to be available to people all across government?
Thank you for teeing me up for one of my absolute favorite topics, which is the absence of what nerds like me call level 3 data. So that line item pricing data is not usually required or visible in federal contracts. Vendors will argue, come on, that's, a trade secret, I can't have that published. Agencies will say, well, it's really hard. We bought a bundle of things. We bought peripherals with this hardware and software all at once. But I would love to move in the direction where there's more clarity. If it just is intra-government, I can live with that. There's no reason it can't be public. California has great pricing data that I often use with my clients to figure out what they should price their federal offerings at. So I would disagree that it can't be done, and I'd love a push there to improve that pricing transparency.
We have less than a minute left. Mechanically, what would have to happen that isn't happening now? Because like I said, GSA has tried to do this for a long time and just seemingly has not been able to wrap its arms around the issue.
Yeah, it's a will issue, not a technology, legislation, regulation issue. So agencies would have to write that as a requirement into their contracts, and vendors could then have the choice not to bid on those. I think given the current environment and some of the things we talked about at the top, they're probably less likely to push back in an extreme way as they have been in the past, but that's really what it would come down to. And to be clear, I want this done in a collaborative way. These government contractors are usually very mission-oriented, great folks in businesses, and so are the people on the agency side, but collaboratively they can get there.
Joe, it's great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Francis.